This video is sponsored by CuriosityStream. Get access to Nebula, a video streaming service made by your favorite educational creators when you sign up for CuriosityStream using the link in the description. This is Yorubaland, the homeland of the Yoruba people. With a population of about 46 million, the Yoruba are one of the largest ethnic groups in Africa and one of the three major ethnic groups in modern-day Nigeria, along with the Hausa and the Igbo. The Yoruba built one of the largest empires in West Africa, crafted some of humanity's finest art, and looked damn good doing it. Their artists are famous worldwide, and no other African culture has affected the Americas and the Caribbean as much as the Yoruba, who left a mark through people, dance, food, and the religions of Santeria and Candomblé. So, who are the Yoruba? What is their history? And what does it have to do with a universe creating chicken? Well, let's find out. Geography. Yorubaland is a cultural region that stretches across southwestern Nigeria, Benin and Togo. Most Yoruba live in Nigeria, where they make up 21% of the population. The largest cities in Yorubaland are Ilorin with 1 million people, Ibadan with 3.8 million and Lagos, or Echo in the Yoruba language, with 15 million people. That's 3 times more people than live in my entire country. Yorubaland is a diverse landscape, with dense tropical forests and mangroves in the south, and northwards you'll find a rugged highland region where you can see these cool Inselbergs like Olosunta. And the north also has a Guinea savanna region. Yorubaland is home to the Mona monkey, the African forest elephant, leopards, the adorable Senegalese bush baby, and parrots, which have played a sacred role in Yoruba history. Language. There are many different Yoruba groups with their own unique cultures, but they are united by the Ede Yoruba, the Yoruba language, spoken by 47 million people. Yoruba is a tonal language, like Chinese, where the tone you use influences the meaning of the word. The tonal aspect of Yoruba means that it can be mimicked easily. For example, there is actually a form of whistled Yoruba used to communicate over long distances. This means people who have arrived for me, greetings at work. The Yoruba talking drum also speaks by mimicking the tonal and rhythmic features of Yoruba words. For millennia, the Yoruba passed on their history orally, and so the talking drum acted as one way to pass history from one generation to the next. Islam arrived in Yorubaland in the 14th century from Mali, Africa's great centre of Islamic learning, and brought with it Ajami, a form of Arabic script, which was the first script the Yoruba language was ever written in. In the 19th century, Christian missionaries introduced the Latin alphabet which Yoruba is now written in. Yoruba is just one name for Yoruba speakers. They also call themselves Omo Ile Kara Ojire, literally meaning the children of the land where we greet good morning, did you wake up well? There is a stereotype in Nigeria that it takes Yoruba 10 minutes to say hello. Yoruba are big on greetings, kind questions and showing respect. If one Yoruba walks by another Yoruba and they don't greet each other, you can safely assume there is some drama happening. There are many greeting styles depending on the person, time, weather and event. The most basic hello is simply pele or epele. If it's rainy, you can greet with ku ojo. If someone has just given birth, you greet with ku ewu omo. And if you're greeting an elder sitting down, you say e kujoku. Yoruba always greet elders with e. Elders get the most respectful greetings. Traditionally, when greeting elders, a woman may kneel down while a man may lie chin and chest to the ground. History. Around 4,500 years ago, ancient Yoruba speakers had already settled in the thick forests of West Africa and began farming yam and oil palms. It's difficult to know exactly the size of the early Yoruba civilization, but through oral traditions and archaeology, we know Yoruba culture was here, 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 and here. So it's safe to say it was pretty big. The Yoruba preserve their history orally and have multiple creation stories. One version says, in the beginning there was nothing but water and the sky above. The supreme god Olodumare sent down Obutala to create the earth. Obutala descended to earth on a chain armed with nothing but a snail shell full of dirt, a palm nut, and a chicken. He dropped the first piece of dirt where the city of Ife is now located. Ife means the source of the spreading. And with a lot of pecking, the cosmic chicken spread the earth to create all of the continents. Soon the palm nut sprouted, and that was the beginning of life on Earth. In another version, during the creation, Obutala did well at first. He even started forming little clay figurines that became the first humans. But Obutala got really drunk on some palm wine and couldn't finish the job of creation. And so the god Oduduwa finished it for him. It took about 4 days for the world to be created, and so the Yoruba calendar is made up of a 4-day week. Oduduwa is recognised as the father of the Yoruba people, and Ife is their symbolic centre. Around the 700s BCE, the Yoruba were already producing iron. This was a huge development, one, because they somehow discovered ironworking before bronze, which has driven historians mad for years now, and two, because iron slaps. With iron hoes, machetes, axes and other tools, the Yoruba pushed the dark, dense forests away from their settlements. This opened up new farmland, settlements expanded and trade grew. Iron was crucial. One of the Yoruba's most important gods, or Orishas, was Ogun, the god of iron and blacksmiths, also called the creator of civilizations. As the thick forests turned into thriving farmland, the once separate towns joined together forming Ilu, something we could compare to city-states. At their centre was the Afin, which was the palace of the Oba, or king. Right next to the palace was the main market, the Oja Oba. The rest of the city radiated out from there. The Yoruba became one of the most urbanized groups in ancient Africa. And what do urban societies have? Craftspeople, blacksmiths, weavers, sculptors, and all sorts of specialized professions. These masters of wood, stone, clay, and metal would travel between Ilus looking for work. The market was central to Yoruba life and was well organised with guilds and unions where both men and women could participate, but where women had a special place in trade, having at least one elected Iyaloja, or mother of the market, who represented the traders in the Oba's palace. The Yoruba traded widely on the trans-Sahara and West African trade routes. The most traded resources were yams, salt, iron, herbs, leather, palm oil, palm wine, raffia products, textiles, and the cola nut. That's the nut that was used to make the original Coca-Cola, along with cocaine. Most Yoruba cities had multiple shrines and beautifully maintained gardens, and were surrounded with massive mud walls. One settlement called Sungbo's Eridu, built by Queen Belixu Sungbo around 1000 CE, had a 160-kilometer wall and ditch defense system. This required moving about 3.5 million cubic meters of earth, 1 million more than the pyramids, and formed a ring covering an area of about 2,000 square kilometers. That's 50% larger than modern London. This was one of the largest building projects in history. It was hidden by hundreds of years of rainforest growth, but is now joining other great African engineering marvels such as the pyramids, Timbuktu's mosques, and Great Zimbabwe. All these settlements were having a pretty chill and relaxed time, but then in the 10th century, Oduduwa came. He was probably a leader from one of the smaller settlements around Ife, but then he decided to move his people a little closer to Ife. But he didn't want to bother with all the alliances and politics in place, so war. This caused a lot of death, destruction, stabbing, maiming, some slapping probably, and Oduduwa was winning. The chiefs of Ife panicked and sent Obutala, the king of Ife, to negotiate with Oduduwa. Apparently, Obutala was really bad at it since he was constantly drunk, which, wasn't great. The negotiations went nowhere. Seeing this, people flipped to Oduduwa's side. He won the war and became the king of Ife. As king, Oduduwa gave Ife the political hierarchy, structure and bureaucracy a city of its size needed. So you might remember the names Obutala and Oduduwa from the creation of the universe, and that's because it is them. In the Yoruba religion, important living people were deified and became Orishas. In the centuries after Obutala and Oduduwa, many other remarkable people would enter the heavenly realm as Orishas. The rich and now organised city of Ife attracted immigrants, and by 1300 CE, Ife had around 100,000 inhabitants, and its industry produced iron, glass and other valuable goods. The artists at Ife around 1200 to 1400 CE crafted some of humanity's greatest pieces of art, such as the incredibly naturalistic Yoruba stone and metal sculptures. Oduduwa was a really smart guy and decided that instead of waiting to see his heirs fight each other to the death Game of Thrones style, he gave each of them a beautiful beaded crown and sent them away to found kingdoms of their own. One such prince was Oduduwa's grandson, Oranmiyan. Between the late 12th and early 13th centuries, Oranmiyan travelled to the far northwest borderlands of the Yoruba area. According to oral tradition, a chief of the Bariba people gave Oranmiyan a snake and told him to follow it. That snake had a great eye for real estate because it led Oranmiyan to a perfect location where he founded the city of Oyo. Unlike Ife, which was located in a heavily forested area, Oyo was in a Guinea savanna, a great open space ideal for farming and right between the Trans-Niger and Trans-Saharan caravan routes. By the end of the 16th century, the city of Oyo transformed into a powerful empire using imported horses. Yeah, horses, which is weird since horses and tropical Africa don't really go together. The disease-carrying tsetse fly likes to infect any large animal in the area with a horrible case of death. This made horses ridiculously expensive, but by taxing trade routes and producing valuable goods, the Oyo were rich enough to import horses from North Africa and over the scorching Sahara Desert. Using their cavalry forces and reportedly the best bone in Africa, the Oyo Empire conquered vast stretches of territory. The emperor of Oyo was called the Alafin of Oyo. The Alafin was not always the son of the previous Alafin and was not always male. A council of 7 chiefs called the Oyomesi elected the Alafin from a pool of princes. The Oyomesi was led by the Bashurun, or Prime Minister. They represented the interests of the empire and were supposed to prevent the Alafin from becoming a tyrant. The Oyomesi's power was then checked by the Ogboni, a council of chiefs, and by the Eso, a group of high-ranking generals. And get this for checks on power. If the Alafin was doing a bad job, the Oyomesi would vote and then send the Bashurun to present an empty calabash to the Alafin saying, "The people reject you, the gods reject you, and the earth rejects you also." The Alafin was expected to commit ritual suicide when this happened. This system of checks and balances kept the empire stable for centuries. By the middle of the 18th century, the Oyo were the largest empire in West Africa, connected to international markets and had tribute flowing in from conquered kingdoms. But with big empires comes big trouble. As the empire was at its peak in 1754, an ambitious Bazurun called Gaha conspired with the Oyomesi to seize power for himself. He managed to get 4 successive Alafins to commit ritual suicide. Gaha's plot went on for 20 years. His scheme only came to an end in 1774 when the Alafin Abidun executed Gaha. Alongside this, in the 15th and 16th centuries, Europeans arrived at the coast looking for humans to traffic, which created an insatiable demand for slaves. Compared to other states, the export of enslaved people from Yorubaland was small between 1500 and 1750. Legally, only convicted, hardened criminals could be enslaved, and the Yoruba did not enslave or even go to war with other Yoruba frequently. The peace the Oyo maintained kept Yoruba people off European slave ships. But things changed by the late 18th century. The Oyo peace was over and they were expanded. The peak of the slave trade and the Oyo military expansion overlapped, and the Oyo transformed into a large slave trading power by conquering their neighbours, mainly the Nupe, Bariba and Aja, and selling the war captives to middlemen traders at the coast, who then sold them to European and American slave traders. This business caused several revolts. Alongside these internal problems, the Oyo came under pressure from a Fulani invasion from the north. The empire cracked, and the resulting implosion of the Oyo left its people vulnerable to raids by neighbouring societies like the Dahomey and the Nupe. So while kings and generals got rich off slavery, and the greed of nobles brought the empire to its knees, it would be the average Yoruba that paid the price. Yoruba captives poured into the Atlantic slave trade in the first quarter of the 19th century. The collapse of Oyo led to 8 decades of warfare that devastated Yorubaland, which left them wide open for, you guessed it, imperial. It's the British again! In 1851, Britain bombarded and sacked the Yoruba city of Lagos. Before the turn of the century, most of West Africa was under either British or French rule. The 19th century saw Christian missionaries arrive and convert millions of Yoruba to Christianity, sending the Yoruba religion into decline. All the different people living in this area were merged together into the new colony and protectorate of Nigeria, which was ruled by British companies who forced the people to grow massive amounts of palm oil needed to fuel Britain's Industrial Revolution. It wasn't until 1960 that the Union Jack was lowered and the flag of the newly independent Nigeria took its place. Diaspora. The transatlantic slave trade dragged millions of Yoruba men, women and children away from their homeland and forced them to build and maintain the economies of the New World. Around 12% of all enslaved people brought to Cuba were of Yoruba origin, and in Brazil they made up 40% of the people sold in the state of Bahia. Those who survived the horrific journey across the sea arrived in the Americas with nothing. While you can take the people away from their culture, you can never take the culture away from the people. Most enslaved people had to convert to Christianity, but the Yoruba reinterpreted Catholic saints as representations of Yoruba Orishas. For example, the Virgin Mary was seen as the Orisha Yemensha. When religions mix and form a new religion, it's called religious syncretism. This created something distinct from both Catholicism and the Yoruba religion in Africa. In Brazil and Uruguay it became Candomblé and Umbanda, and in the Caribbean it became Santeria or Lukumi. Yoruba words are still used during rituals in these religions even though the practitioners no longer speak Yoruba. On the 2nd of February in Brazil and Uruguay you can still observe the Yemensha festival, where people sent her gifts on boats sent into the sea. Yoruba drums like the bata drum and talking drums can still be heard in Afro-Latin and Caribbean music, in capoeira practice in Brazil, and in reggae and hip-hop. Yoruba music has deeply influenced African and international music. Fela Kuti was one of Nigeria's most famous musicians and activists and was one of the pioneers of Afrobeat music. Food traditions travelled with the Yoruba to the Americas as well. In Brazil, a little cake called acarajé,
Acarajé.
acarajé,
Acarajé.
acarajé became the first intangible heritage recognised in the country. Acarajé was sold on the streets by African women called baianas. They were easily recognised by their distinctive clothing, and you can still see references to these women in Brazilian Carnival, where they spin for hours in their extremely heavy costumes. Acarajé is a version of Yoruba akara, made of mashed black-eyed peas and rolled into a ball and deep fried in palm oil. Speaking of food. Yoruba cuisine involves starchy meals such as cassava, yam or plantain pounded in massive mortars, until they get a little elastic and form a sort of cake or ball. Varieties of this are called eba or iyan, and are eaten alongside soups and stews. The Yoruba are known for their love of spice and chili peppers. Seriously, other Nigerians are in awe of Yoruba spice tolerance. One Yoruba saying is, a soul that does not eat pepper is a powerless soul. Some Yoruba favourites are okra soup, ofada rice, amala, eforiro and egusi soup. And while this will destroy the comment section, some people say Yoruba make the best jollof rice. Religion. The traditional Yoruba religion is called Isheshe. There is one supreme god, Oludumare, who lives in the highest heaven. He's pretty distant because he's pretty busy with godly stuff. So on earth he acts through the at least 401 Orishas. Some Orishas are Ogun, the Orisha of iron, Eshu, the trickster Orisha of chance and also the divine messenger, Oshun, the female Orisha of fertility, Sopano, the Orisha of smallpox and healing, who is very popular in the Americas where he is called Babalu Aye, and Shango, the Orisha of lightning and thunder. Shango is another example of a real historical king becoming an Orisha. Each believer and family will have a particular Orisha they feel connected to. Yoruba religion is deeply moral. One key concept is Omo Luabe, which means good character. One must be humble, honest and respectful, especially towards elders. One Yoruba proverb says, one's character is what accompanies one to the grave. Wealth does not go that far. The Yoruba are known for their love of parties and festivals, and they never miss out on a chance to host a fun event. Yoruba will throw a party to celebrate the success of a previous party. Yoruba weddings are known for their high fashion, dancing, huge guest lists, drumming, unique greetings, and of course, spraying money on the bride and groom. Today, roughly 90% of Yoruba are either Christian or Muslim. The Yoruba are a fairly unique ethnic group in Africa because they're almost split 50-50 between being Christians and Muslims. Families can have members of both religions, and Yoruba tend to be less extreme on religious issues in Nigeria. A large number of Yoruba people continue to practice their traditional religions through festivals like Gelede. During this festival, the dances are performed by men, masquerading as elaborately costumed male and female figures. During this festival, you'll hear agogo bells, sekere, and talking drums. During the Egungun festival, the Yoruba worship dead ancestors as masked individuals impersonate the dead, and during the Osun Osogobo festival, the city is cleansed. Fashion. The Yoruba are a fashionable people and take immense pride in their colourful, well-made clothing. One of the oldest traditions is the use of an indigo dye to make a patterned cloth called adire, dating back to at least the 11th century. Another very traditional Yoruba textile is aso ike. This technique was created around the 15th century, and today it's still used for special occasions and ceremonies like weddings. Some traditional clothing includes the women's iro, a kind of wrap skirt, and the buba, a blouse. The men wear agbada, a robe, and sokoto, trousers. And let's not forget the very important matching headpieces worn by both men and women. The men's cap is usually the fila, but it's the women's headpiece, the gele, that steals the show. It's made of a long piece of cloth draped in a particular way and wrapped around the head. Of course, the looks wouldn't be complete without beads, usually necklaces and bracelets. The Yoruba are a bead people. They love beads. Beads in the crowns, beads in their body, beads on the walls, beads everywhere. Legends say that the walls of King Oduduwa's palace were encrusted with beads. Although the palace didn't survive to our time, the tradition of giving relief to walls with beads was very strong and is still done today. Now, all around the world, millions of Yoruba people, most of them still living in West Africa, but also the millions of descendants of those brought to the Americas, and modern Yoruba that have moved abroad, still fight to keep their traditions alive. And today, you'll still find Yoruba people greeting the world with their vibrant culture, food, music, and fashion. I wish there was somewhere I could greet amazing educational videos. Oh wait! Cogito and a bunch of our creator friends got together and made our own platform called Nebula, and we're excited to be partnering with CuriosityStream. Nebula is a place where you can go and watch some of the best educational content ad-free, uncensored, and earlier than YouTube. This video was on Nebula days ago, and many creators upload videos to Nebula weeks in advance. Creators can also experiment there with all kinds of new and exclusive stuff. By supporting Nebula, you'll be providing a budget for creators to put together Nebula originals that would never make it on YouTube. Take for example, Real Life Lore's Modern Conflict series, a series that dives deep into topics that YouTube's algorithm would bury. There are many, many more Nebula originals, all funded by and created for people like you, people that enjoy original, independent and smart content. But what does CuriosityStream have to do with all this? Well, CuriosityStream is the best place to find world-class documentaries online. We've teamed up and created a deal where if you follow the link in the description, you'll get access to not only CuriosityStream, but Nebula too, for free. And it's not a trial or anything like that. As long as you're a CuriosityStream member, you'll get Nebula. And right now, for a limited time, CuriosityStream is offering Cogito viewers 41% off their annual subscription. That's less than $15 a year for both CuriosityStream and Nebula. I loved their documentary Treasures of the Earth, which is about indigenous peoples around the world. So if you like this video, you'll love it. They actually have the budget to go film on location and visit these people, rather than having to draw chunky versions of them like we do. So click the link below to get 41% off an annual CuriosityStream subscription along with free access to Nebula. Or you can go to curiositystream.com/cogito. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. You can find all the sources in the description. And if you're interested in supporting the channel, there are links to my Patreon and t-shirt store also in the description. My patrons get early access to all these videos. Thanks so much for watching and oh, dabo.